Welcome back, everybody, to another thrilling episode of Thrive Your Program with Coach 2Js. This is your host, Jeremy Jones. We're talking about week 21, Wednesday, May 22nd. So we want people to understand why strength movements and metcon movements overlap regularly. And so this has come up. I've made a video about it recently, and it was a question that people seem to notice that we'll do front squats in for strength, and then we'll do them here afterward in the metcon. And what research has said is that for example, one of the reasons is drop sets. So one of the ways to get additional hypertrophy muscle growth is to do a set basically to failure, near failure at for example, whatever the movement is. Let's say it's 100 pounds. Then you drop down usually about 20%, so about 80 pounds, and then you do basically near failure, and then you might drop again to something like 60 pounds or less, and then do another set to failure. And that has been shown to increase hypertrophy. And so that's one of the reasons why we'll do the squat and then we'll do a similar movement in the workout, is kind of to elicit a similar effect. Now usually when we're talking about drop sets, it's immediately after, so minimal rest in between, but it's one of the ways that you can use your time more efficiently. But the other reasons are things like from a coaching standpoint, there's you don't have to coach a totally new movement, so by doing the front squat, it's going to make it easier. You're going to be able to see kind of how people are moving, and so you can make corrections while they're doing their lifting, and then their coaching cues will make more sense to them when you're giving them when they're in the middle of the metcon. A lot of times it also has to do with equipment and stuff like that, so they're already set up, they already have their barbell or whatever, so it's a similar movement because of that. But generally speaking, it's one of the ways that we can tax the muscles. When we do these heavy, we're going to be taxing the muscle physiologically, so we're actually going to make the muscle tired, and have to we're going to reduce some of the ATP and some of the things that are helping people contract their muscles, but we're also recruiting as many muscle fibers as possible, and as they fatigue, from a central nervous system standpoint, they'll have to train their body. Their body will be trained to use more muscles and things after they've already been taxed, right? So, one of the things about doing the lift and then doing the metcon is that it's a form of scaling up, right? So if people just did the 7-minute metcon, they would get a better score. We know that. But by having people do this first, we're going to challenge them more so that it drives more adaptation in the second part. And I think when people do ask this, and it's usually out of a frustration that they know that oh man, I would have done so much better on the metcon if I didn't squat right before this. And it's like, yeah, that's the point. If everybody's squatting and then they do this, that they're not performing at peak. And it's good to take notes when you log your workout, say right after front squats, so later on, if we do this workout after a different movement, might perform significantly better, and that could be part of why. So it's designed that way. That's why these workouts are so short. Just doing 7 to 10 minute AMRAPs and not doing lifts regularly would kind of hamper some of the gains that we can see over time. So we've got our dynamic warm-up. We're going to do some hip activation, and again, not a ton of stretching before we do heavy front squats, so just make sure we're doing more tissue work and kind of working on getting in better positioning if you are going to stretch, helping people get in that below parallel with an upright torso, but also activation stuff too, so helping people activate their hamstrings and their glutes when they're doing these movements, especially squatting type movements. So we got 6 sets of 3, of course, adjusting load each set. Obviously, if we want them to kind of hit their maxes right around set 4 or 5, and then they can either hit it again or go up again on the last set if they have more in them. Then we're gonna do some single arm ring rows. So 7 on each arm is going to take a while. So just be aware of that. But again, it's usually good to start that timer. People should be able to finish this in about a 3-minute. Doing a set of front squats every 3 minutes. The squats themselves should only take 30 or so seconds to get through, including unracking and re-racking, and then they have 2.5 minutes to get their single arm ring rows done, right? Now, some people might even be pretty supine, but most people are going to struggle enough with their feet on the floor with their body at an angle. Now we've got warped perspective. 7-minute AMRAP, we're going to do 4 shoulder presses, then we're going to do 4 thrusters, then 4 push presses, then 4 push jerks, which is all shoulders. So we want to make sure that people understand that they need to be using their legs as much as possible on the thrusters, the push press, and the push jerk. So this is one of those workouts where we actually want people to. It's going to force them to learn the timing and the technique for these things. I want their shoulders to get tired, right? So the idea is the shoulder press is going to be hard, then the thruster, they're using their hips, and then their push press, they're using their hips, and then their push jerk, they're using their hips twice. As they fatigue, you'll see that their technique on something like the push jerk is going to improve, and which is good because we're doing a jerk focus. So you can point that out to people. You only really want to use your shoulders only on the shoulder press, and then everything else should be a combination of hips and shoulders. Now the out and back lateral shuffles each way. We're going to bend over and touch the line, just to make it a little bit more interesting. But so it's out and back 1, out and back 2, out and back 3, out and back 4, and then they go back. And that's just going to give the shoulders a little bit of rest, while increasing sort of the cardio output. Now we want people to really push themselves on these shuffles. If they kind of lackadaisically go through this, they're not going to get the same wallop of a metcon. But keep in mind that this week we are, I have kind of dialed back some of the intensity this week, because we have Murph. So again, even for people who aren't doing Murph, they're still going to get a great week of training in. It's not that the training's not going to be hard enough, but in general, you're going to see that this week isn't as crazy hard as it has been, as a week 2 might normally be from a metcon standpoint. Last week we definitely did a lot of metcon and a lot of reps. So again, this week we're kind of tapering off a little bit, so people are recovering and their bodies are super compensating so that they can hit Murph hard and not injure themselves and PR and all that fun stuff. There's a scale up for people who really want to be aggressive. This would be a real spicy workout for anybody with that scale up stuff. But I did put a cash out here again if people want extra, because maybe again they didn't feel like they got enough cardio. Maybe they aren't doing Murph and they want to add more. They can always do the optional cash out at the end. But that's it for today, guys. Thanks a lot and thrive on.